as many of those responsible for building stone structures in southern Africa had Jewish Israelite blood in them, we will start with the distant past. The Jewish King David, about 1000 BC, was recorded as having sent miners to the island of Ophir to mine gold. This is interesting, as Fura in Mozambique was often regarded as being an island. This gold was used for the building of the Jewish temple. The Burgoa map of 1452 shows Ophir at the extremity of Africa, but Ophir could have been found elsewhere. Ophir may have been in India, which has always been the entrepot through which products from Africa, the Mediterranean world, and the Far East exchanged hands. If Ophir was the destination of a 3-year return voyage, mentioned in Kings 10:22, then Ophir must have been a far distant place. A trip from the Red Sea to southern Africa, India, and back would easily explain the need for a 3-year expedition. According to the Old Testament, it was the Phoenicians or Tyrians who traded with the land of Ophir. This in 1 Kings 10:11-15 and Genesis 10:29. From where King Solomon, approximately 970 BC, drew rich merchandise after he had formed an alliance with Hiram, king of Tyre. Ophir could have been in southern Arabia, India, or even East Africa, and Africa is the greatest gold-producing region of the three. Some likely locations for Ophir are Sudan, Eritrea, or Ethiopia in East Africa, Southern Africa, or Western Arabia. Eupolemus, in 150 BC or so, assigned Ophir to the Arabia, identifying it with the island of Fura in the Red Sea. This locality, though, had little gold to exploit, making it an unlikely candidate. The gold of Hubli and Mysore would have been transported south in India to a place called Fura, which was the terminal points for ships from the Arabian and Red Sea ports. This may have been one of the original Ophirs. African ivory was softer and more workable than Indian ivory, and this would have become more popular as time went on. Eventually, the ivory trade, iron and gold, may have produced links between southern Africa and India. Another view was that Ophir was the intermediate emperor through which the fleets of Solomon and Hiram left from Ezion Geber for gold imported from Havilah, for the spices grown on nearby Mount Sefer, not far from the deep inlet of Moscha, around which was said to be the ruins of Ophir. So there may have been quite a few different Ophirs. From the earliest time, trade with the East African coast depended on an understanding of the variable monsoon winds and the sea currents by which mariners could navigate their way across the Indian Ocean. These winds blow from the northeast from May to November and then conveniently switch to the southwest from November to May. The result is that traders with the northeast monsoon could sail down the east coast of Africa, but when returning with the southwest monsoon, they made a direct crossing of the Indian Ocean to India. Consequently, the world has always thought that India was the source of the raw materials which actually came from Africa. In 1 Kings 22, the Bible mentions Hiram's ships of Tarshish bringing gold and trade items. The Tarsic Sea is the Indian Sea according to the historian Josephus. The Greeks regarded Tarshish as being in Africa. It was said that the Greeks regarded Ophir as being the table of the sun. It was also said to have so much gold that the natives preferred copper to gold. The many items mentioned in the Bible said to have been brought along with the gold of Ophir are all found in Africa. Pearls are found off the coast of Mozambique or the coast of Sofala, and there were fine hardwoods between the Zambezi and Sofala that included ebony and ebony-like woods. As for peacocks, Africa has its own peacock, but the word in the Bible could refer to any beautiful bird, word tuki in Hebrew. Silver refers to a light-colored metal which could also be iron. Both iron and silver are found in Africa. Apes are most likely baboons and long-tailed monkeys, as it is unlikely that chimps and gorillas were known at that time. When the Queen of Sheba went to Solomon, it was no doubt to cement a strategic relationship with the Israelites in trade and as a military ally. The Phoenicians under Hiram of Tyre were double allies, and the Tyrian sailors were some of the best in the world. The Jews now had access to the southern seas, the gold of Ophir, and other trade in that sphere of the world. The Phoenicians who worked with Solomon were notoriously and understandably secretive about their trade routes, upon which their commercial and physical survival depended. We have little documentation from these earlier times that could shed light on their travel and commercial ventures. If they were to travel to southern Africa during the time of Solomon, it is likely they kept much of their activities state secrets. One of the most likely destinations would have been the gold fields of southern Africa, from where they could have obtained both alluvial and mined gold. Lope, who was a European recording events in southern Africa, stated that the inhabitants of East Africa had books that showed Solomon had come to Southeast Africa for gold. The Lembasena people of southern Africa, who have Jewish blood, allege that when Solomon returns, some of his men remained, teaching the Africans to worship Mwali, a single god, and spreading their traditions throughout the region. Are some Lemba direct descendants of Jews from King Solomon's court? In view of the maritime enterprises in the Red Sea by King Solomon and some Judean kings, it is not far-fetched to assume that some Judeans settled in Yemen and eventually in Africa during that early period. The name Ophir is possibly the origin of the name Africa. There may be an African source of gold. The Ophir, Afa, Ofu, Afu, or Fura of the ancients. We have locations in southern Africa which have the name of Ophir or Fura. When the Portuguese first arrived in southern Africa, they were told by the Arabs, who had a long history in the region, that the gold fields of Zimbabwe, Mozambique, were the Ophir of the Bible, and the locality where the Queen of Sheba and Solomon acquired their gold. The richest mines were said to be at Masapa, which is called Afo, and the Ophir where the Queen of Sheba had her riches, which later went to Jerusalem. Here nuggets of great size had been found. In the high and grand mountain Ophir near Masapa, ruins of stately buildings were seen of stone and mortar, said to have been palaces and castles. In the time of the queen, it was said that there were other kings subject to her, and that stone constructions at Masapa and Nabertura were built by her people to control the gold fields in the region. The ruins were said to have been used also by Solomon's people. The Portuguese recorded Masapa as being 4 leagues from the river Manzovo, in brackets we can say Mazoe. This was the principal market for trading and was 50 leagues from Tet. Close to this mountain was the great and rich mountain called Fura, plentiful in gold, from which ancient Moorish tradition related the Queen of Sheba took many camels' worth of gold. The question is, was this Ophir in Zimbabwe or Mozambique? And the stone ruins, were they recent or ancient? Did the ancients really come to southern Africa? And did more recent ruins get mistaken for their workmanship? One of the better known Furas is Mount Darwin in Zimbabwe, in a productive gold field. Looking around at Darwin, there is little sign that the Queen of Sheba or the ancient Israelites ever came there. There are other Furas in Mozambique, and as the ancients may not have stayed long, they may have left little behind for us to find. Mining and farming activities may have obliterated many ancient sites. Looking at maps from the Portuguese era, we find Fura was placed closer to Sena than Tet. This means that the original Fura is more likely in Mozambique and not in Zimbabwe. Mount Fura was located near Sena, opposite a lake, Rufambo. This before one enters the Lupata Gorge. Inja Kafura, which means the place of the great Fura, was in the land of Makombi, the chief of the Makalanga, or people of the Sena area, and just south of Sena. Masapa is also often regarded as being in Zimbabwe, but you find a Sapa or Masapa in Mozambique in the Sena area. This Sapa was found by the explorer Carl Peters, who went there at the end of the 19th century. Peters found the place with a strong stockade, and it was an open market town where gold was exchanged. This Mozambique Masapa had gold mines just to the west of it. All these places are in the Tambara district. Near the Mura River in the same area, Peters claims that he found the remains of walls from the Queen of Sheba period. Some of the walls were up to 15 feet high, and the site was about 10 miles from the Zambezi. Peters, who had seen the Mashonaland ruins, regarded the Zambezi ones as of greater antiquity. They were rougher and the walls far more damaged by the ravages of time. The ancients could have sailed their ships up the Zambezi as far as the Lupata Gorge, and then crossing the Mura Gorge, they could have made their way inland to the gold regions. The word Fura in southern Africa was used to mean a hole or mine. The main Furas were Fura in the area of the Zambezi, Inja Kafura on the Lupata Gorge, Inja Kafura opposite Tet, Fura on the northeastern slopes of the mountains that run down to the Garezi and Manika, and Fura at Mount Darwin in Zimbabwe. Fura was at Chipatula in the western part of the Bagwi or Bawi country of Chief Makombi.